Welcome back to the class, everyone. I don't know about you, but I found it a little bit strange that we still haven't made a video about how to use Mod and Zeta Sith Eternal, despite the fact that he is one of the most accessible and owned Galactic Legends. So that's what we will be doing today in this video. I thought it might be funny to title this video How to See, but I also don't want to confuse people who are actually wanting help in their vision. At any rate, before we talk about Zetas and mods and how to actually use this team on offense, we do need to address what comps you want to use Sith Eternal Emperor in. And we're going to start off with by far the most common and probably the best is going to be Sith Eternal Emperor along with Wat Tambor. Now, I know that Sith Eternal is big on the rule of two and Wat Tambor isn't a Sith, but that really doesn't matter because everything is going to come down to the fact that Wat Tambor has this really nifty tech, literally, where he's going to apply a back-to-age shield generator to Sith Eternal that is going to recover 30% protection every single time he takes a turn and dispel all the debuffs. This is a really big deal for Sith Eternal because it's going to capitalize on three things that he's doing. Number one, Sith Eternal's protection steadily grows as the match goes on, so you're getting more and more 30%, if that makes sense. And then on top of that, when you go to link any two members, you're actually going to have the opportunity to recover that 30% protection both times, so you get 60 instead of 30 because you take 2 turns when you go to link a character. And then on top of all of that, one of the worst things that can happen to see is when he's going up against, say, a Sith Empire team, and he's about to zap Malgus, he's about to zap Darth Revan, they're doing a lot of damage to them, and then Talon or Malgus or whoever ability blocks your Sith Eternal, he can't get off his ultimate, and then you just lose. Wat Tambor, once again, solves this problem because on the back-to-age shield generator, he is going to allow C to dispel all of his own debuffs, including ability block, so that you can take out whatever you need to take out. So, again, when you're using Sith Eternal on offense, this is probably going to be your bread and butter comp. Now, if you don't have Wat Tambor for whatever reason, or you just want to use him in a different team like Trench where he can get a lot of utility, you do have some other options. If you want to use Sith Eternal defensively, which I probably wouldn't recommend unless your opponent doesn't have any GLs and you can kind of just stonewall them, I would recommend a comp like this or this comp exactly. You're looking for a few elements when you're trying to put together a team defensively for Sith Eternal, and the first one is you want to stop Wampa pretty much at all costs. Not only is that embarrassing, but it's also really good banners for your opponent, and they get to kill a Galactic Legend without one. So Malik pretty much hard stops it. You have another option of SWGOH. Now, these other 3 characters really aren't mandatory, but I do like the whole team because what it allows you to have is ability block, healing immunity, and tenacity down all on basic abilities, meaning every single time Sith Eternal calls everyone to assist, he has an opportunity to ability block and heal immune an enemy SLKR if someone was trying to solo with that. A very kind of niche counter, but again, this is kind of a niche use in general that you could be going for. Now, we do need to address Sith Eternal with Darth Bane. Darth Bane was kind of made to be a lifter for Sith Eternal, kind of not. I won't get too much into that. Now, there might be a temptation to use the two of them together, just because Bane has a lot of callouts that, again, seem obvious to be using him with Sith Eternal. I'm going to prescribe that most people do not do this, and it's not because the two of them together are bad. In fact, the team is very good. The problem is both of them have a ton of utility offensively without needing the other. So you can go on to kill several teams again. We'll talk about it at the end of the video. And Darth Bane is probably the best offensive character in GAC in the entirety of the game. So the only scenario that I found thus far where you really want to put the two of them together is against certain Galactic Legend Ahsoka comps in 3v3, which again, niche, but it is something you can do rarely. It is something I've done and has actually worked quite well in that exact scenario. But for the most part, Bane can probably kill all the teams that he wants to without C other than that one. Oh, they also beat Jabba in 5v5 together, but again, I would recommend most people just find a better Jabba counter and use the two of them separately. Now, last but not least is going to be Sith Eternal against JMK. If you use this specific comp and have everything lined up just right, you can actually get it to work. Pretty much, you need Thrawn, armor, and then 2 Pretons. The reason for 2 Pretons is because you need to make sure that they don't immediately kill armor, and they have the opportunity to remove taunt from one of the pre-taunts when JMK goes to use his first special ability because Ahsoka will assist and probably dispel one of the pre-taunts. So then you have the other one to take the annihilate from Cat. Now, once you have gotten that far and you don't have your armor immediately annihilated, you need a way to go immediately back to armor after she has already gotten her third stack of Beskar, and that's where Thrawn comes in. So as long as Thrawn is 21 speed slower than armor, and that is because he will gain a speed boost from Sith Eternal, he will be able to go right after her, and because JMK doesn't block TM swaps, but just TM or bonus TM, you could actually go back to armor, get 3 stacks of Beskar and C, and that will buy you all the time you need to be able to kill off all the members. So a very nuanced counter, but I did want to mention it as far as overall comps go, because it really is Sith Eternal's highest value when it comes to his offensive utility in killing JMK. So now that we've covered what all the comps need to look like, I do want to go over his modding very briefly, and I can say it's actually really, really simple. There isn't really a lot of debate on this. If you look at most seeds, you're going to find the same thing over and over again, maybe with a little bit of variance for people's actual mod depth, but it comes down to pretty much one thing, maybe two. It's health. It's going to be health every single time. The reason why you want so much health is because C's main job is to survive long enough so that he gets to his ultimate so that he can zap his enemies away. You don't have to bank on any type of offense to be able to do that. You really don't need potency because he can do whatever he needs to do without it. There's no need for the tenacity, typically because he's used with Wat Tambor. And then we want health over protection because Sith Eternal's health basis is so much higher than his protection. And really, we're going to gain a lot of protection from his kit, and we don't necessarily need to start with a large amount in his base because the way he gains it is actually scaled off of enemy protection and not his own. So ultimately, a highest bathe health Sith Eternal is where you want to go. And you do this by putting 3 health sets on him and then 4 health primaries. I would advise you to get him somewhat fast through speed secondaries, but you don't necessarily have to have a bunch of plus 25s. If you have plus 20s or plus 15s, that will probably get the job done until you start to get into really scary territory where you have really fast JMKs. Also, we do health over defense because a lot of the teams that C wants to fight have some type of either true damage or defense penetration or armor shred that kind of bypasses that overall. And now on to Zetas. And this probably is what a lot of people are very interested in, or at least people who just unlock Sith Eternal. And Sith Eternals are a bit weird, but they're going to make sense as we go through them. The first and most important Sith Eternal Zeta is going to be Galactic Legend, and it has to do with what we've been echoing throughout this entire video. C can't die, and he actually is in danger of dying if you do not have this last Zeta that is going to essentially add 80 or 70% max protection and max health because of his relic amplifier, and then also just universally decrease damage by 30%. Again, this is huge. Way back in the day when he was used as a ray counter, he would be pretty much completely obliterated without these stats to help him out to survive against Ray. It is still important today when you're fighting against teams like Malgus or Malicos that are still dealing really good amounts of damage when C is their only target after you kill off Wat Tambor. So it's a non-negotiable. It affects most counters. It's very, very important. It beats out really anything that the other Zetas are going to do. Next up is going to be his leadership. Not quite as universal, but still really important. It is going to allow him to increase his mastery as time goes on. This becomes very important because if you ever run into those really annoying, I've actually ran into them a lot recently, Bastila, Led, JML, and Wat Tambor. Without the stacking mastery, you really never get to a point where you can just zap away the bonus protection from JML and he just becomes unkillable. This also stops the Imperial Trooper counter, which if you've never heard of that, it's because this Zeta exists, and they actually edited this after his release because they didn't realize that when they introduced Piet and Dark Trooper that Imperial Troopers were actually going to be able to beat them. And it gives them turn meter essentially whenever the enemy team gets Emperor's Trap, which just stops the team cold. So if you don't have those 2 Zetas, or that last Zeta, you are going to open yourself up to that other counter depending on what your sides look like. Now for the next 2 Zetas, we are going to look at So Discord and So Be It. These will be our 3rd and 4th in priority. So Discord is actually really important for spreading around the deceived. We'll go over the basic that'll cover a little bit of this even more. But basically, this is how you're going to make sure that C does all the things that he wants to do, and the fact that he can't be targeted if you are using him on that bigger team that we looked at earlier, and with the fact that he'll recover even more protection from this, and then deceive spreading will also get him to his ultimate faster. So again, not as important as the first 2 that we looked at, but it's still doing some things that are crucial to his kit. And then So Be It. This is 50% protection recovery, not only for himself, but also for all of his allies. So if you want the battle to go on longer and for him to survive longer and not necessarily rely as much on the Wat Tambor tech, it's something you are going to eventually want. Now, last and definitely least are going to be his basic ability, as well as Destiny, or Unraveled Destiny. The basic ability actually is somewhat important. It'll increase those deceives from 1 turn to 2 turns, and then from 1 turn to 3 turns on Jedi. And I say that it's mostly important because at the end of the day, Deceive's still going to get out. With the unique, it's still going to spread. You're really not going to be cut out on the ultimate charge that much because you're also going to be getting a lot from linking. So again, not of the utmost importance. If you don't have Zetas right now, you can totally do without it. And Unraveled Destiny honestly is, man, it's not completely worthless, but it's close. Dark Side, tank allies gain taunt for 2 turns. You just don't really need them to do that, I guess. I mean, I guess in the one scenario that we just looked at before versus JMK, if you don't want to take 2 pre-taunts, just in case the taunt goes away, I guess that could be the one scenario. Because at the end of the day, our biggest danger is people going right after C, and they can't really do that consistently with the Deceive mechanic, and you're not even using C typically with other allies all that much to begin with. So I guess the one example where you have armor, if you don't have a way to put the taunt back on a character because Ahsoka ripped it off, then maybe this could come into play. But again, wildly niche scenario that you can just get around by having 2 pre-taunts in the team, so you don't have to necessarily make them retaunt. So that's how his Zetas want to go. Again, the last 2 not nearly as important as the first 4 because that's how numbers work. Now, last but not least, I did want to go over what he beats because this, as we said many times in this video, he's an offensive GL. We should probably at least give some suggestions as to what he can go after. Now, in addition to just listing off the teams, I wanted to talk about which characters he wants to link right off the bat, because that's really the only choice that needs made as the video or as the battle goes on, because after that, you just kind of spam basic and special in whatever order. Now, the first team that we talked about him beating is going to be the JMK Cat team. And there are 2 ways of doing this, and I'll tell you which one I'm more comfortable with, and then I'll give you the other one as well. I like linking GK and Cat, and the reason why is you mitigate a little bit of risk in the sense that if you get ultimate so fast that you don't have another chance to relink because the cooldown hasn't gone down, then you can just immediately ult and immediately zap them, kill them, call it a day, move on with your life. The other strategy is to link GK and Jedi Master Kenobi, just because he's a Jedi and you can get more protection from him. I don't like that as much because while that is technically true, if you don't have enough time to relink, the cooldown doesn't go down all the way, then you're going to be in a little bit of trouble because you're going to have to relink to get Cat because she is the real threat on the team. So that is how that battle needs to go. Jedi Master Luke, this honestly doesn't matter that much. I like to link Jedi Master Luke and then Jedi Knight Luke. You could do Cal Kestis as well just because he gets... he takes a lot of turns, so you're likely to get to your ultimate faster, but at the end of the day, that's fine. Malgus and Darth Revan, again, this one's probably pretty self-explanatory. Darth Malgus because he's pre-taunted, and then Darth Revan has a tendency to move more because he double taps against enemies that have either Corrupted Battle Meditation or Death Mark or what have you. Next up, we have our good friend General Skywalker. This one is going to be gas and 5s, and the reason why is because you need 5's protection to be completely gone, otherwise you're going to have a hard time actually even chewing through him. Trey and Savage, this one actually doesn't really matter at all. Link whoever you want. It has like a 99.86 win rate. You will be absolutely fine. Just zap them until they're gone. And then the last one is Crew and Malicos. If people are, for whatever reason, not running Crew, you do not have to do that. It's listed just because he pre-taunts. Ideally, you would link Malicos and Fulcrum because Fulcrum can kind of do some dirty damage, especially with a lot of people having her at Relic 9 right now. So hopefully this video was helpful. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And as always, stay awesome.